What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Cody here, and the Colts play a preseason game today. They kick off in Buffalo at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So with that, wanted to come out with a quick video talking to you guys about an hour and a half before kickoff, talking about 5 players on the offense and 5 players on the defense that I am watching for the Colts. I did a similar video on my other channel, the Cody Felger Show, so be sure to go check that out. But without further ado, let's jump right into it. The first player I think we have to talk about, no question in my mind, is quarterback Anthony Richardson, right? I mean, he will be debuting, he will be starting. The big question is, number one, obviously, how well will he look? How will he look here in his first ever action in an NFL game against a different defense? That's the big overarching question. And then I think the second question for me is, how long will the Colts have him out there, right? I mean, Shane Steichen said the starters will be out there about a quarter. Is that the case for Anthony Richardson? Because we've heard different people, Steichen, Ballard, even Irsay, say Richardson needs experience, right? So how much experience does he get? Is he out there just the first quarter? Is he out there a half? Like, that's the big question. But ultimately, how does Richardson look? How does he respond if he has a bad play? All those things I'm just curious about. Just a lot of unknown when it comes to Anthony Richardson right now and how he will respond to an actual game setting, not against his own defense. Now, again, probably some vanilla coverages. Teams, especially the Bills, don't want to, share what they're doing, but just out of curiosity, it'll be interesting to see how Richardson looks here. So that's my first guy that I definitely will be interested in seeing for sure. No question in my mind, Anthony Richardson is the first guy. And I don't think it's really relatively close in my honest opinion. So Richardson is the big guy on the offensive side of things. But, there's a couple other guys that I'm really interested in seeing. There's 2 wide receivers really interested in seeing. Alec Pierce is the first one. I mean, we've seen just the chemistry that him and Anthony Richardson have built together. So that's definitely a guy that I'm 100% intrigued to see. How does he take that next step? Number one, Alec Pierce, right? I thought all things considered, he had a pretty good rookie season, given the situation he was thrust into, given really the lack of scheme down the stretch for the Colts offense. I felt like Alec Pierce responded well, had a couple nice games, had a game-winning touchdown against Jacksonville. So, but he did, saying that, as good as he was, he still did have issues, right? So I'm intrigued to see how Alec Pierce has grown in things like his route running ability, right? That was one of his big questions. And also getting separation. He was one of the worst receivers in the NFL last year at doing that. So thinking about that with Alec Pierce, and also just obviously the connection with Anthony Richardson, how does that kind of look, that chemistry between those two? So that's one for sure. Another guy, like I mentioned, I had 2 wide receivers. Josh Downs is a receiver I am very interested in seeing, because him and Richardson have been building that chemistry really since the beginning. If you remember, Josh Downs, I believe, shared that him and Richardson were out in the parking lot, in the hotel room, right, before rookie minicamp. Like, they were building that chemistry really from day one. And they're both roommates, so they've really gotten to know each other, in the last couple months here. And, it'll be really interesting to see Josh Downs, because he is a different kind of receiver than really you have. I mean, Isaiah McKenzie would be the closest comparison, but really just what is Downs going to provide? What are the Colts? What can you expect from him, right? And then how does him and Richardson, similar to Alec Pierce, how do they build their chemistry together? Like, what's that going to look like? I'm very intrigued with that. And that is just something that I'm just like, I just have no idea what to expect when it comes to Josh Downs, and that's kind of exciting. So how will the Colts use him? Where will he kind of factor in? Will he be with the first team? Will he be with the second team? I know him and McKenzie have kind of been like, they've kind of been alternating, like in and out, So I believe Downs will probably be with the 2s. I mean, from what we saw a couple days ago, he was running more with the 2s. But regardless of where he's at, I'm intrigued to see how he performs and what he provides and the spark he gets for this offense, because he's a guy that gets the ball a lot, makes a lot of plays, at least he has in camp. So I want to see that in an actual like live game setting, even if it is only the preseason. So Josh Downs, certainly a guy for sure. Before I get into my next guy, thank you everybody who is in this stream. If you would do me a huge favor, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Let us know you're here in the comments, and we'll continue on here. But just want to tell you about that. We will not be streaming the game today, unfortunately, but Derek will be having a recap up a little bit later after the game. So be on the lookout for that. But without further ado, let's continue on. So I talked about 3 guys on the offense. I have 2 more guys I want to highlight on the offense, and then we can flip it over to the defensive side of things. The next guy I want to talk about is Bernhard Raimann, the left tackle for the Colts, right? A guy that, let's be real, guys, he was thrown into kind of a no-win scenario in certain ways last year where he got thrown in there, and yeah, it was rough at first. It really was. He wasn't the guy that was probably expecting day one or at the time to be thrown in there. But hey, you know what? I thought for his credit, despite being thrown into a situation that wasn't great, playing against some really good pass rushers, I felt like as the season progressed, Bernhard Raimann started to hold his own a little bit more. And I felt like, and I know the Colts were, but it seemed to me like Bernhard Raimann, from when he started the first game to when he ended the last game, he was a lot better and a lot more experienced. And the big question, though, at the end of the season was, can he get bigger? Can he get stronger? That was one thing that Chris Ballard really said he wanted to see Bernhard kind of make a big focus this year. And what did he do? He worked in the offseason, added 10 to 15 pounds of muscle. So he's right around 315 now or so, roughly 315, 320. So he's gotten a little bit bigger, a little bit bulkier, a little bit stronger. His anchor is probably a little bit better. So how does he look here in preseason game number 1? We haven't really seen or heard a lot about Bernhard Raimann so far, and maybe no news is good news, but I'm just intrigued to see him and kind of the year 2 jump that we can expect here. If he's out there with the starters for a quarter, how does he look? Does he hold his own? It'll be interesting. So Bernhard Raimann's the first guy here on the offensive line. The second guy has to be Will Fries for me, and a guy that I know a lot of people were shocked that the Colts are rolling with again for this year, because, I know he was kind of thrown into a not great situation either when Danny Pinter got benched, but I don't feel like he showed maybe as much of like a positive step, I guess, as maybe Bernhard Raimann did. I thought he was fine, but I definitely felt like between the two, Raimann definitely was more encouraging than Will Fries was. But Chris Ballard has said, Will Fries has really had a good camp, and they're really excited about him and what he can provide at right guard. So, you know what? Talk is cheap. So I want to see if he has taken maybe a leap into the next step, and now having a full off season of being the guy at the right guard position, maybe will help him, here, as the full-time starter. So that's a guy that I'm really intrigued in. Both these young offensive linemen, I think, are going to be huge. If they can play well, that's going to obviously dramatically help your offensive line. So Bernhard Raimann and Will Fries are the 2 guys that I will use to round out the offensive side of things. By the way, thank you to the over 70 people in here right now. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Really appreciate it. I'm not quite sure where we are in terms of likes right now. Somebody will have to tell me, but regardless, thank you guys. Really do appreciate that. And moving on now to the defensive side of things, I have 5 guys on the defense that I'm really intrigued to watch. I think the first guy is the newest addition on this defensive line, and that's Samson Mabuka. We haven't seen him, and he got injured, he got injured kind of early into camp, and he started to come back like last week. So he's starting to ramp things up a little bit more, and he's kind of got that. I think he's got really good ability, and a lot of people project him to potentially break out this year. So, like, how does Abukum look? How does Abukum look as that new addition on that defensive line, kind of the replacement for Yannick Ngakoue? How does he look? Can he get after the passer? Can he make his presence felt? I'm intrigued. Color me intrigued with Samson Mabuka. So he's definitely one that will be interesting to watch and to monitor for sure. I mean, you could probably throw in all these other defensive linemen as well. I mean, Kwity Paye, Dayo Adangbo, all these different guys, I think, are just interesting guys to watch. But I have to go with the next guy on my list, who will be playing, by the way. It was a big question mark, but he will be playing in this game although he will be on a pitch count. That is Darius Shaquille Leonard. He's a guy that I'm so excited that he's getting on the field and that he feels and the Colts feel he is healthy enough and good enough to play in this game. So Shaquille Leonard is the guy I'm watching. Get out there, some actual game action. I mean, I think, I don't know what you guys feel, but I am kind of shocked that the Colts are putting him out there, just given how much they tempered expectations, given how much they have been just overly cautious with this. But that is exciting just because that means Shaq is a lot more back than not, right? And obviously the Colts are going to be careful with him, not have him out there for a lot. But just having him on the field, I think, is huge for building the chemistry with these backers, really, and with this defense. So Shaquille Leonard, how does he look? How does he look in his first game action since the second surgery? So Shaq is one for sure. No question in my mind that I'm intrigued by him. So that's one guy. And then I have a couple different DBs that I want to highlight. I really have like three guys that I want to talk about in the DB room because it's so young, it's so inexperienced. There's so many questions when it comes to the DB room for the Colts. I think the first guy you have to talk about is the biggest surprise that nobody expected coming into training camp, and that is Darrell Baker Jr., your cornerback one right now, a guy that's kind of just taken the opportunities with Rush and Brent's being out, and with the Isaiah Rodgers situation, him not being on the team anymore. Throw in this guy, Darrell Baker, a guy that was on your practice squad last year, and from all indications has been lighting it up in training camp so far. So I am intrigued to see him in a real game setting because he's been looking really good in practice. If he's a guy that just comes out of nowhere and cements himself as cornerback one, that is tremendous. That is just something you did not expect at all. So he's a guy I'm really intrigued at looking at. I think the second guy I'm really intrigued at looking at is also, the rookie, Juju Julius-Brents. He's just recently came back from injury, and he's got obviously all the size that you're looking for. We've talked about this. He's super athletic. He's made some plays already in training camp. I don't think he'll probably be out there with the starters, although I could be wrong. We'll see what happens with probably Kenny Moore not playing. We'll see. Maybe he does get one of those starting outside corner spots, and maybe a guy like Dallas Flowers maybe goes into the slot. I'm not entirely sure, but regardless, Juju Brents is a guy I'm so intrigued to see and actually see him in game action and see how he looks, because I think it's only a matter of time, in my opinion, until he cracks a starting lineup. So I want to see how he looks here in week number 1 of the preseason. See what he can show you, see how he shows out, all those different things. Really looking forward to seeing Juju Brents in action. Now, I didn't have Darius Rush initially on this list, but I'll throw him in here as well, kind of for similar reasons. Just came back from the injury. He's got a lot of upside. Really intrigued with him for sure. The final guy I want to talk about here, guys, it's a guy that we have all been asking questions about on this secondary in the safety room specifically, and a guy that Chris Ballard, he just brought it up, actually. I didn't even ask him. He brought it up unprompted. He said, on the offense, Will Fries was the guy he highlighted. On the defense, Nick Cross is the player that he highlighted. I am very intrigued in Nick Cross. He's got the athletic ability. He's tremendously young. He's only 21 years old right now, guys. He played as a rookie at 20 years old, which Ballard admitted that was our fault, not his fault. So they really believe in Nick Cross. They believe, Gus Bradley, I believe it was, or I don't remember who it was. One of the defensive staffs. Maybe it was the cornerback coach. I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, regardless of who it was, they came out and said a couple weeks ago when they met with the media that they really felt like kind of the way that he's approached this season compared to last year when he was kind of a kid, to be honest. They feel like it's so different. He's so much more mature. He is so much more focused this year. And I feel like, honestly, guys, that rookie year was very humbling for Nick Cross because, you think about if you're in his shoes, you're a guy that you must feel pretty special because the Colts traded up to get you. They wanted you, and you're out there as the week 1 starter at 20 years old. And then after a couple games, you're benched and your playing time goes from virtually every snap to barely any snaps over the course of the season. So I have to imagine that was super, super humbling for a guy like Nick Cross. And now he has an opportunity as that number 3 safety where he will get a lot of playing time if we can base it off of how the Colts used their safeties last year. And so I really feel like Nick Cross has an opportunity here to show a lot of things. He had some good plays in the preseason last year. So how does he continue to grow as a player, continue to get better? And it seems like he's had a strong camp so far from all indications. So I'm interested to see how the 21-year-old continues to grow into that number 3 safety position. And who knows? I mean, Julian Blackmon's contract is up after this year. Maybe Nick Cross, if the Colts feel like he's ready, maybe they decide to move Nick Cross to the starting strong safety next year. But as it stands for this year, Nick Cross is a player I am super excited about, got all the athletic ability in the world. We've talked about that ad nauseum at this point. But I do feel like Nick Cross has a tremendous opportunity in week number 1, and I'm going to really be watching him, not just today, but I'm really going to be watching him throughout the rest of preseason and throughout the rest of training camp and see, is he truly a guy that's learned a lot and has grown as a player and, is going to become more prepared than maybe he was last year in certain ways. So those are the guys that I have as the 5 players I am watching in this matchup on the offensive side of things, and the 5 guys I'm watching on the defensive side of things for the Indianapolis Colts today. How many of you guys are going to be watching the game today out of curiosity? Let me know in the comments below. But that will do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate all the support. Like I said at the beginning, if you guys love the Colts, love talking football, love talking NFL, this is a place for you. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe. Turn on the notification bell. I had a random stream last night around midnight where I just decided I wanted to hop on, talk about some final thoughts, get some people's opinions on the Colts. So if you have that notification bell on, you'll know when we drop another video. So be sure to do that. But other than that, guys, thank you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll be sure to check those out later on. But let me know, guys. Thank you again. We really appreciate all your support. We're getting closer, I believe, to our goal of 17K, which is just madness to me. Yeah, we're under 400 to go before we reach 17K. So we're slowly getting there. It'd be nice to get there before the season starts, but again, we'll see. But thank you guys. Really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys. You guys are the best. As always, guys, have a good one. And as always,